right, time to swing, just like...
So, the new Spider-Verse movie
is a masterpiece. Oh, look at the graphics on that. Look at the graphics on that game.
So as I'm sure you're very shocked to hear, the new Spider-Man movie is pretty goddamn good. When the first Spider-Verse came out back in like 2018, it was a shock to the system and it changed the landscape of animation as we know it. We could see its influence everywhere, and this movie just pushed that even further. I mean, Spider-Punk alone took like, what, 3 years to figure out how to animate him? Yeah. I know people have been a little burnt out on superhero movies lately, but between this and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I do think that there's at least still a way that you can make these movies fun and interesting and engaging and just like massive spectacles. And I really do think that more studios should try to look at this and think, we should probably be more like that. But not in like the bad rip-offy kind of way, like in the take inspiration and learn and be better kind of way. But I've rambled for long enough. Let's actually talk about the movie. Where to even begin? Well, I guess we should start at the beginning. The entire first 15 to 20 minutes of this movie is dedicated to Gwen and her backstory and everything like that. And it is visually stunning. It is so gorgeous. Oh my god, I love the color palette. The backgrounds are beautiful. I think something that they really nailed in this movie is making every single dimension so unique and so beautiful. They really did take full advantage of the multiverse concept of the film. But back to Gwen, I am actually kind of surprised by just how much screen time that she got in this movie. The first movie was all about Miles and his journey into becoming Spider-Man, and then Gwen was there to help him along the way, as she's already kind of gone through that process, even though she's still very like new to this. Obviously, she's had more experience than him, so she was there to help him along with Peter B, of course. But this movie is, in a lot of ways, her movie as much as it is his. I'm not going to go too in-depth on either of them, but both of their stories in this movie are extremely well told and poignant. I really love the direction that they took with both characters. And since I have nowhere else to put this little tiny segment, I'm just going to point out that this one outfit that Gwen wears towards the beginning of the movie, Sasha Wainwright, I did not expect that to be here. I was dying in the theater when I saw this. I was like, what? Amphibia has destroyed my brain. Miguel O'Hara and The Spot were both fantastic antagonists. The Spot especially really surprised me with just how well they managed to integrate his character into everything and make him a real, like, menacing presence. From the trailers, you would get the impression that he is just like a villain of the week type thing, but no, he proves by the end that he definitely is worth taking seriously. And speaking of the ending, I know this video has no coherent structure, but bear with me, gotta get some of the criticisms out of the way. I think the ending is where people have the most criticism of this film, or at least that's what I've tended to notice. And it's pretty easy to see why that is, and I do agree with some of them. For one, the movie is pretty long, and you do kind of start to feel that towards the end. The pacing is really good for most of the movie, but by the end, they do introduce a lot that is supposed to set up for the next movie and segue into the next movie. There isn't really a problem with the actual content that is in there, it's just that it doesn't feel like the end of this movie, it just feels like the start of the next one. This really isn't a deal breaker at all, it just means that this movie doesn't really work as well as a standalone movie as the first one did. And speaking of things that I think that this movie doesn't really do quite as well as the first, I think the soundtrack in the first movie is definitely better integrated, and it feels more integral to the movie overall. This movie doesn't really have a What's Up Danger or a Sunflower in the same way the first movie did, if you kind of know what I mean. There are certainly some good tracks. I mean, Hummingbird with James Blake, whew, music to my goddamn ears. Not to mention Spider. But I do think that they should, in the third movie, move back towards how they used the music in the first movie. I think that that would be a really nice, like, loop around moment, a full circle sort of thing. And I think it would be more impactful too, because while the animation is stellar in this movie, even better than the first in like a lot of ways, I don't think there's any shot that's as iconic as the What's Up Danger building leap scene from the first movie. And if they could recreate something like that, or just, you know, make a whole new shot that's just as iconic in the third movie, then that would be fantastic. But they need the music to match. The next thing I wanted to mention isn't so much a criticism as it is a question, sort of. After Miles disrupts a canon event, Miguel explains to him that he can't do that and that these canon events are things that happen to every Spider-Man and they bind everyone together, and by undoing them you potentially risk destroying everything. And Miguel would know because he did so himself. He tried to live a life in another dimension that wasn't his own, and it ended up destroying that entire place, so now he tries to keep everything else in check. But he does say that he and the other Spider people could potentially fix the dimension that Miles has like started to break, so do they explain how they could do that? Because I assume that that method is what they used to contain the first dimension that Miguel tried to be in that, you know, went under, so to speak. They'll probably explain it in the next movie, but I just really want to know how it works, because it's interesting, and I don't really understand. Like, how much canon do you have to break before the entire multiverse unravels? Clearly destroying one dimension won't do it, so if you have like a solid explanation, feel free to just leave it in the comments. I'm definitely curious as to how exactly they could really do that. Final criticism, I think the Spot could have used a little bit more spotlight in the second half of the movie. He's definitely like a big threat, but it seems like he just kind of takes a backseat to everything else, and it's kind of weird that he doesn't show up for most of it, like at all, until like the very end. I think just maybe a couple more scenes with him would have made it feel like he was more present there than he really was, because he didn't need to be there, because obviously there's the third movie and he's going to play a huge part in that, but it still would have been nice to just like acknowledge him a little bit more in the second half of the movie. And I know I said the last criticism was the final criticism, but this is the real final criticism, okay? 0 out of 10, garbage movie, there was no Peter Porker. I'm mad, I'm disappointed. He should have been there. Okay, but in all seriousness, this movie is absolutely phenomenal. It's fantastic. Go watch it. I absolutely love the direction that these Spider-Verse movies have taken in questioning what it truly does mean to be Spider-Man in like a very meta way that I appreciate. I didn't mention it earlier, but it does feel like Miguel is kind of the embodiment and representation of a lot of the people who just can't see Miles Morales as Spider-Man. But he is Spider-Man, and I think the next movie is definitely going to reinforce that Miguel's very rigid way of viewing the canon and what it means to truly be Spider-Man is limited, and he's gonna have his mind changed or something, I don't know, by Miles going his own way and managing to do his own thing and overcome all of the odds against him. Or at least that's what I guess is gonna happen, I don't know. If anyone can pull this off, it is definitely Phil Lord and Chris Miller. I don't know how they keep pulling it off, because they are just masters at it at this point, and I sincerely have no doubt in my mind that they will deliver something exceptional with the third movie, as they have done here, and as they have done with the previous movie. My only request is that Spider-Punk needs to be in the next one. I really need him to be there. He was the best character in the whole movie. I love him. I want him and Nicolas Cage Spider-Man to team up and fight some bad guys. That's all I want. That's all I need. 10 out of 10 movie, if that happens. If not, 0 out of 10. I'm sorry. Unsalvageable. Garbage franchise. Also, I want Miguel O'Hara to have my baby. Anyway, if you like this video, follow me on Twitter, like the video, subscribe, Patreon or something, I don't know. This movie's great. Go see it right now.
I'm feeling